Distinguished guests, friends and colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, and welcome to today's seminar, Financing the Green Development of the Belt and Road Initiative. This seminar is co-hosted by the Hong Kong Monetary Authority Infrastructure Financing Facilitation Office and the Belt and Road International Green Development Coalition. Today, we're here to discuss green investment in the Belt and Road countries and how to leverage Hong Kong's strength to achieve this goal. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Mr. Darrell Chan, Deputy Chief Executive of the Hong Kong Monetary Authority, to deliver his welcome remark. Mr. Chan, please.
Secretary General Chay, Nicholas, Ambassador Bahar Shweki, friends and colleagues, good morning. 崔秘书长，各位嘉宾，早上好。On behalf of the HKMA Infrastructure Financing Facilitation Office, or IFFO, let me extend a very warm welcome to you all. Thank you for joining this seminar. At the third Belt and Road Forum for International Cooperation last year, IFFO joined the Green Investment and Finance Partnership as an inaugural member. The partnership was initiated by the BRI International Green Development Coalition and its partners across the globe. We hope to contribute to the partnership by leveraging the strengths and expertise of Hong Kong's financial sector to find viable financial solutions to support the green and sustainable development of the Belt and Road countries. It is our great pleasure to co-host the partnership's first event outside of the mainland here at the HKMA as part of the Hong Kong Green Week. Green and sustainability is at the heart of the Belt and Road Initiative, which calls for pragmatic cooperation, dialogue, and exchanges in climate change mitigation and adaptation. Belt and Road countries currently account for close to half of the world's greenhouse gas emissions. The majority of these countries are emerging market countries. As they develop, industrialize, and urbanize, their energy and infrastructure needs grow in tandem. At the same time, many of these countries are highly susceptible to climate change and extreme weather. Concrete efforts are therefore needed to ensure sustainable development and to tackle climate change. Considerable progress has been made. Many Belt and Road countries have scaled up investments in low-carbon infrastructure. They have also made strong commitment with roadmap and timeline to reduce carbon emissions. But more needs to be done and can be done. We need to efficiently channel investments towards areas such as clean energy, low-carbon transportation, and next-generation technologies. Our investment decisions today will shape the emission trajectory that affect future generations in the decades to come. Hong Kong should play our part as a global citizen. One area we can make an outsized contribution is climate finance. With our deep and liquid financial markets, robust regulatory regimes, and talents from all over the world, Hong Kong offers a unique platform to bridge the gaps, not just in terms of funding, but also standards and expertise. In 2022, Hong Kong arranged more than 1/3 of Asia's green and sustainable bond issuance. Green and sustainable bond and loan issuance exceeded $80 billion in the same year, representing a 7-fold increase in just 2 years. Hong Kong banks are offering tailor-made green solutions and funding that match the transition needs of their clients. Capacity building and talent development are also central to the growth of sustainable finance. This is, in fact, one of our priorities. Besides locally focused efforts to enrich our ecosystems, you also partner with international and regional organizations on capacity building to facilitate the exchange of knowledge and sharing of best practices. Today's seminar will cover topics that are highly relevant to promoting sustainable development in the Belt and Road countries. I wish the event great success as the first of many, and look forward to the thoughts and insights of our distinguished speakers. 下面我简单的中文讲几句啊。
Last year, in the high-level summit on Belt and Road Initiative, we serve as one of the initiative partner. The IFFO had the privilege to work together with Belt and Road Green Development Coalition. We would like to thank the efforts and participation of our partners along this Belt and Road Initiative, as well as to continue our work together to promote green investment and green development along the Belt and Road countries. Thank you.
We're also honored to have Ms. Cui Dandan, Secretary General of the BRI International Green Development Coalition. Ms. Cui unfortunately cannot join in person today and will instead say a few words through the screen. 崔秘书长，请。
Honorable Vice President Daryl Chen, Commissioner Ho, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Spring has arrived and everything is renewed. We just celebrated the Chinese New Year, and we are standing on a new starting point of the second decade of the Belt and Road Initiative. It is imperative for us to hold this Belt and Road Initiative Green Development Finance Seminar. This is of pivotal importance that we jointly explore the new ideas for deepening the green investment and financing the BRI. As one of the organizers of this seminar, on behalf of the Belt and Road Initiative International Green Development Coalition, I'd like to extend a sincere welcome to everyone. I'd like to say a few words about our organization. The coalition was established in 2017, jointly launched in 2019. We now have fostered over 170 partners from home and abroad. We welcome organizations and agencies who are participating in the green development of BRI to take part and forge a partnership with our coalition. In the last year's summit, the coalition worked together with other 17 Chinese and foreign partners, including the IFFO and Hong Kong Monetary Authority, as well as the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. We jointly initiated an investment and financing partnership for green development, aiming to give the full play to the strength of our financial institutions, enterprises, and other partners in Hong Kong. The partnership aims to capitalize on the strengths of the finance institutions, enterprises, and other partners to make breakthroughs in the green investing and investment by providing practical solutions. The partnership was launched more than 100 years ago, and it has achieved high recognition and widespread attention both at home and abroad. These cannot be successful without strong support and great participation from our partners. So today, we really hope to be able to hear from everyone and exchange our insights. Ladies and gentlemen, just as mentioned in Hong Kong's 2023-24 budget, the promotion of a green economy of sustainable development is an important international course, and Hong Kong has an advantage in building into an international green technology and financial hub. Under the principle of one country, two systems, Hong Kong has a unique advantage of backing up the mainland and to connect to the world. It is in a unique and important position in supporting the BRI. Well, the time is ripe to promote green development and green financing. Over the past decade, BRI's green development has made remarkable achievements, but the current momentum of investment from financial institutions and enterprises is still not strong enough. We would like to meet the strong desire of developing countries in their financial needs in green development to achieve economic growth. In view of this, our coalition launched a partnership to reduce the investment and financing cost of green projects and help the investment to finance the BRI to find the BRI the green and low carbon projects. Second is that we do have sufficient conditions for strengthening the cooperation in green financing. We have a nice ecosystem for green development in Hong Kong and a comprehensive green and financial platform and high standard green financial services. Based on Hong Kong's advantage in green economic development and green finances, we're willing to make joint efforts in the areas of green projects design, financing, development, as well as project promotion, so that we will be able to solve issues with regard to investment with professional solutions, so that we'll be able to build a batch of explanatory and benchmark projects together in green development. Third is that we have a very prosperous green financing market. Against the global backdrop of sustainable development, policy support, innovation promotion, as well as demand stimulation, you can see that we are in need of great solutions of green investment and financing. Problems require joint participation of all parties. When it comes to future development, we're more than willing to uphold the concept of openness and inclusiveness. We open more organizations to join our partnerships to provide professional support with their capacities in the building of green projects. Last but not least, I would like to wish this conference a great success, and I also wish you a very happy new year of Dragon Alone. Thank you. Thank you very much, Secretary General Cui.
Next up, please join me in welcoming Mr. Nicholas Ho, Commissioner for the Belt and Road of the Hong Kong government, for his keynote address. Mr. Ho, please.
Thank you, Secretary Cui and Darrow. Distinguished guest speakers, Ambassador Bahar, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is my pleasure to start by sharing promoting green development under the Belt and Road Initiative and how Hong Kong can play an important part of it. Under One Country, Two Systems, Hong Kong has been an active participant, contributor, and beneficiary of the Belt and Road Initiative. The government has been adopting a whole government strategy to participate in the initiative, and under which my office, the Belt and Road Office, has been tasked to lead and coordinate Hong Kong's participation. The BRI values win-win cooperation that promotes common development and prosperity by enhancing mutual understanding and trust among more than 150 countries and 30 international organizations. The cooperation is not just about economic growth, but embrace and pursue the collective good of green and low carbon development with a vision to build a green Silk Road and address climate change. Promoting green development is also amongst the 8 major steps as announced by President Xi Jinping at the 3rd Belt and Road Forum in Beijing last year, as mentioned by Darrow, to support high-quality Belt and Road cooperation going forward. The Belt and Road Initiative has always been about people-to-people bond and people prosperity. And based on that, over the last 10 years, we have seen the green Adoption has been a key economic driver for many projects that has been built in the past. Remarkable progress has been achieved. China has developed the guidance on promoting green Belt and Road and the guidelines on jointly promoting green development of the Belt and Road, and set itself ambitious targets of forming a basic framework of green development through Belt and Road cooperation by 2030. It has also signed MOU with the United Nations Environment Program on building a green Belt and Road for 2017 to 2022. And of course, the amazing work by the Belt and Road International Green Development Coalition, one of today's event organizers, has signed multiple MOUs and done knowledge sharing, knowledge transfer, capacity building, exercise, and training for many Belt and Road communities. Across the board, all projects under the Belt and Road Initiative have set very ambitious and holistic goals and metrics to achieve in the future. It is a process that is constantly evolving to build a greener future. Talking about climate change, Hong Kong has been striving to achieve carbon neutrality before 2050. We would be on target. Hong Kong's carbon emission has peaked in 2014, and a climate action plan published in 2021 sets clear strategies and neutrality targets in achieving net zero. For instance, we will expand the use of more renewable energy such as solar energy and explore hydrogen and other new zero carbon energy prospects. With our very first green building benchmark launched in 1996, we will continue to promote green buildings and energy efficiency through the BEAM, Building Environmental Assessment Methods. The government also set up a Green Tech Fund in 2020 to fund local public research institutions, R&D centers, and private companies to undertake green transformation research projects that support our climate action plan. The fund so far has approved 30 projects, involved more than 130 million Hong Kong dollars. In terms of finance, Hong Kong plays a key role, and I'm sure the panel speakers later will share with you a lot more. But apart from the abundance of green professional services or green finance services that we have in Hong Kong, it helps us create Hong Kong being the largest green finance hub in Asia, accounting for 1/3 of all green bonds issued in the region. This represents more than 6 times growth in just 2 years. Our green fintech ecosystem already comprised over 1,000 companies, and the ESG reporting preparation and related subjects, as well as 200 authorized ESG funds with a total AUM of over USD 160 billion is already in Hong Kong. Our Financial Services and Treasury Bill has announced the launch of a proof of concept subsidy schemes for green fintech companies by the end of June to provide early stage funding for pre-commercialization green fintech companies. So no matter it's green or digital, the government direction is to push this strategy forward, but also to support not just big corporates or sovereign funds, but also startups and innovation companies. In the next 30 years, the Asian region will require $66 trillion in climate investments. Last October, HKMA and the Silk Road Fund has jointly formed a Belt and Road co-investment platform of over USD 2 billion to invest in projects in energy transition and infrastructure and explore investment opportunities themed under ESG. This platform will direct government investment vehicles on both sides towards more sustainable investments at home and abroad under the BRI. We have also many homegrown success stories in BRI. One of our bus companies has secured a contract supplying the first hydrogen bus to the UAE last year, and soon to expand to manage over 800 of their new energy bus fleets. A hotel group in Hong Kong has also recently signed an MOU with the Ministry of Investments in Saudi Arabia, and will also be promoting green tourism hospitality projects in KSA, Hong Kong, and mainland China. Our two biggest incubator, Cyberport and the Hong Kong Science and Technology parts, has also been very successful in incubating some of the new and upcoming green tech solution companies. One of their startups, which has recently developed electricity-free cooling paint that can lower service temperature by over 40% Celsius without using energy, is now working with UAE partners to reduce energy consumption in the Middle East. We also have young entrepreneurs in the startup space launching successful products in various green tech areas, such as EVs, charging solutions, 3D printing coral reefs, to help with blue economy. In short, Hong Kong has all the right ingredients to provide the Green Silk Road a green ecosystem. There is a strong consensus, no matter where we are today, that green is not just a political and social driver, but it's also an economic driver. Hong Kong is an ideal hub because we have the green ecosystem. We have the green bond, the green finance. We have the stock exchange Core Climate, which has doubled in size in the first year. And Core Climate, going forward, will be a quality carbon credit platform. And when you think about Belt and Road Initiative, it is the largest, or it will be the largest, buy-side and sell-side carbon credits platform in the world. We're building ourselves as the standards and also green professional services hub, and also a strong support from government funding schemes and research grants to help our green tech solutions. So finance, service and standards, and tech will help fuel Hong Kong as that ecosystem to be the green hub for Belt and Road Initiative. Going forward, we do believe that standards for quality carbon credits and practices will be needed. We do believe that digital infrastructure will need to enhance global accreditation and seamless interoperability of different green standards in order to strengthen our role as the green hub. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I think Hong Kong is not just the super connector for Belt and Road. As our chief executive have mentioned, we are also the super value adder. The value comes from our people, our talent, our services, and our innovation. We stand ready to work closely with our partners. And again, I want to thank the organizer, IFFO and BRIGC, for organizing this event. And I wish everyone a fruitful panel discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hall. We'll now kickstart our first panel discussion, Green and Transition Financing Needs in the Belt and Road Countries. Before welcoming our speakers, please let me remind you that there will be a Q&A session after each panel. Audience may submit your questions through the QR code on the back of the chairs. Now, let's give a warm welcome to our panelists on the stage, Mr. Consul General of Egypt and Hong Kong and Macau, Bahar Shiwahi. Ms. Tracy Wong Harris, Head of Sustainable Finance Asia at Standard Chartered Bank.
中国华电集团财务资产部总监李全成
and Mr. Chen Cheng-li, Director of Finance Asset Department of China Huadian Corporation, and Mr. Wang Baojun, Deputy General Manager, International Finance Department, Global Finance, China Development Bank.
Today. Our moderator will be Mr. Zhang Jianyu, the Chief Development Officer of the BRI International Green Development Coalition. Zhang Shouxi, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. It's such an honor for me to have the opportunity to chair this session. Our session is going to be about the needs, the financial needs for the green transformation for the region. And whenever we talk about the needs, there are always some big numbers that sometimes people are so intimidated that they lose hope to see whether those numbers are achievable. But I want to give you some hope, and I want to share the latest development to the extent that I'm aware of in terms of the supply to counter the need. As the UNSG Secretary General has put it on the table, that if we really want to be able to achieve the climate goals by 2030, i.e. the 40% reduction, we're probably going to need about price tag $2 trillion for all the developing countries to be able to achieve that goal. And what are some of the latest updated supplies? Let's starting from IMF. IMF announced that they are working on something called the RST or RSF, Resilient Sustainability Fund or Trust, that is in the order of magnitude about $60 billion. I think they have released about $40 billion already through the IMF channel to target the issue and also to help countries improve their green governance system in the developing countries. There's also the renewed commitments from the MDBs, the multilateral development banks. I was just recently in Dubai during the COP28, and one of the greatest excitement that I heard there on stage, on site, is that together, starting from the World Bank all the way to the regional banks, also AIIB, new development banks, they have all made renewed commitments to tackle the issue. And by my calculation, that totals about $268 billion of all the renewed commitment. I'll be happy to share with you the details. I think we need to hold them accountable. There are also encouraging signs from China during the most recent completed third BRI summit that President Xi himself pledged $100 billion from China in the context of supporting 1,000 small and impactful projects during the summit. And also the GIFP, you heard Dr. Chen mention about the Green Investment Finance Partnership that BRGC was very honored to be a role, and we have the great partners of HKMA, HKES, and also Bank of China, and many of the other partners in the room to do that. I would just recently, people ask me why I'm wearing the batik, because I just got back from Indonesia, and China also signed an MOU in the order of $54 billion to reform and improve the grid and power system in Indonesia, and that's why I wear the batik, want to signify the importance. So with that in the context and on the horizon, let's talk about the needs and how we'll be able to most efficiently to utilize those supplies and try to dig out more supplies throughout our system in whatever the formats of the financial instruments. But because we all know we need to solve that problems of climate change and sustainability. Let's start with His Excellency, our ambassador, talk about Egypt. Dear ambassador, we just briefly chat. I was in Sharm el-Sheikh during COP27, such a great event that Egypt has organized and contributed to the road of sustainable development and also climate change. We know Egypt has some great visions for 2030 in terms of your SDG goals, and you have many new initiatives. Maybe you can share with us what are those, and how do you think those regional initiatives like the BRI, Belt and Road Cooperation, can help you to achieve those goals? Please, you have the floor.
Good morning. Thank you very much. I'm really so delighted to be here on HKMA. Thank you for inviting me. It gives me great pleasure as well to take part in the Hong Kong Green Week. And let me share with you today Egypt's pioneering experience and promising opportunities in the field of green transition within the framework of the Belt and Road Initiative. As part of its vision for 2030, the Egyptian state believes in the vital role of green investment for promising inclusive growth and ensuring environmental sustainability. The Egyptian government has already brought forward several initiatives, as you said, designed to support the transition to a greener economy, planning to become an international hub for producing and exporting green hydrogen. The government is exerting tremendous efforts to implement the national strategy for green hydrogen and shifting to sustainable energy, aiming to capture from 5 to 8% of the global hydrogen market, as it seeks to make significant contributions to the reduction of carbon dioxide emissions, targeting a decrease of 40 million tons annually. During UN Climate Conference COP27 that you've taken part in, held in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt in 2022, Cairo unveiled its low-carbon hydrogen strategy and announced partnerships with international partners on green hydrogen. Actually, the state targets a 50% increase in the share of green investment by 2025. It seeks to deliver a package of physical and non-physical incentives to encourage companies to come and invest in the renewable and clean energy, such as green hydrogen and green ammonia. Last October, African Development Bank and Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, AIIB, provided guarantees to support the issuance of Egypt's first sustainable panda bond at a value of 3.5 billion RMB. Egypt was the first country in Africa and in Middle East to issue panda bond in RMB in the Chinese financial market, which helped attract investors and secure competitive terms for the transaction. Actually, we have in Egypt what's called the Suez Canal Economic Zone. Its abbreviation is SC Zone. So through its strategic location, has become one of the most important hubs for green energy production in the Middle East region. It has witnessed the first ship bunkering operation with the green fuel in the Middle East and Africa. During last BRI summit held in Beijing last October, the zone has signed $15.6 billion in agreements with Chinese partners to produce green ammonia and green hydrogen from renewable sources. And just 2 days ago, Egypt signed 7 MOUs in green hydrogen and renewable energy with 7 global developers with expected investment worth $41 billion over 10 years to establish projects in the Suez Canal Economic Zone. The signing of these MOUs represent new step in a serious investment partnership with major global companies. One of these 7 developers is a Hong Kong-based United Energy Group. I just want to see this opportunity of being here with you this morning to highlight an Egyptian initiative, an Egyptian program called NWFE. It's the nexus of water, food, and energy, which is currently considered as Egypt's prominent implementation legacies in North Africa and Middle East. Its national program with $14.7 billion, aiming to mobilize climate finance and investment from international institutions to accelerate the country's green transition and could be adopted in other countries. Finally, thanks to the Belt and Road Initiative, Egypt now has a high level and fast-growing cooperation with China. I do believe that there are still many opportunities of cooperation within countries of BRI in green economy, noting the potential economic benefits of investing in green energies are enormous, bearing in mind that North Africa has the most significant untapped renewable resources in the world. But the question is, how can we all cooperate to ensure that we can house this manufacturing within the region? Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, dear Ambassador. I think that was really encouraging to hear all the great stories of the Egyptians are initiating. And thank you for your great partner in the BRI initiatives. Much more on the road. Let's go to Tracy. Tracy, you have really extensive experience not only in the banking sector, but also in the green sector, as you told me earlier, in the formation of the Hong Kong Association for Green Finance. And now we're talking about the needs and how to help your client to get into the money so that they can actually do the work. So how, from a banker perspective, how do you factor sustainability in your decisions, and how then can help your client to really get the money?
Thanks, 谢谢张总. Daryl, Nicholas, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Delighted to be here speaking at the Green Developments on the Belt and Road seminar, and thank you for MA and BRIGC to hosting it. Coming back to your questions, You're absolutely right. Stanchart has extensive experience on financing the Belt and Road because over 75% of our footprints that we operate are overlapping with BRI. So in terms of factoring sustainability in our financing decisions, first of all, Standard Chartered, we are committed to finance emission. This is where all our financing need to be net zero by 2050, and we have set interim 2030 target or over 11 out of 12 high carbon intensive industry, and with the last one, we will be in scope to this year. And Stanchart, we're also one of the earliest UK banks signed the Belt and Road Green Investment Principle, led by Dr. Ma Jun. We have received a number of green product innovations awards and outstanding leadership award from the GIP. And this GIP principle, including embedding sustainability in corporate governance, understanding ESG risk, disclosure on environmental information, enhancing communication stakeholder, utilizing green financing instruments, supply chain management, and also building capacity along the actions, collective action. And also, when we looking at our financing, we have a well-established environmental social risk management team, which we've been established since 1997, where we have to do the environmental and social assessments on all this financing. Last but not least, at clients level, we also conduct climate risk assessment when we incorporate it into decisions on financing with all the sustainability elements.
Thank you so much, and I think that experience really need to be further broadcasted and also shared among the other financial institutions so that more good practice can be established. 下面我们来这个
Next up, maybe we can delve into real practices. We just heard from a government representative and a bank representative. Maybe we can now give the floor to China Huadian Corporation's representative, because we understand that you've taken a slew of technology solutions to reduce the emission, especially in BRI projects. How do you balance the efficiency of your construction versus the sustainable needs? Well, thank you very much, Mr. Derry Chen, Secretary General Cui. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Li Quancheng from China Huadian Corporation. Well, thank you very much for inviting me, and thank you very much for your support to my company. China Huadian was established in 2000, and we have been advocating and committing ourselves to contributing to low carbon green energy and the building of such. We have made some achievements since. I can give you two sets of numbers. One is that for 10 years consecutively, we received an award for top 50 contributor to green development in China. And second is that we had received the Best Practices Award from the United Nations for 5 years in a row. Now, to real practices in traditional fossil fuels, we have been dedicating ourselves to enhance the coal-fired efficiency that is traditional energy in order to reduce consumption on gases and coal. We had a project in Indonesia that had been equipped with high efficient energy-saving devices. If you compare with the unit efficiency along others in the same areas, we have two 600,000 gigawatts units are emitting 700,000 tons less of carbon dioxide compared with other similar units in the same region. We have also been making some progresses in efficient and renewable energies, for instance, carbon capture, capturing and virtual power plants, as well as wind powers. Well, if you look at our business holistically, we have been trying to cut and avoid carbon emission at the very beginning of power generation, and at the end of the value chain, we capture the carbon emission as well. So we will continue to stick with this strategy, going towards green energy and help the BRI countries that we are in to achieve their carbon targets. Our first overseas projects was in Indonesia. It was a hydropower plant, and it was dubbed as the business card for China's business going abroad. And in Vietnam, we also have a Greenland wind power plant, where we took part in climate change bonds initiative, served as a pilot program for utilizing bonds and climate change. As I said before, at the very beginning, since at the design of the project stage, we adopted a sustainable planning for designs. I believe that this is a great example of how construction can contribute to low emission power generation, reduce our reliance on fossil fuels, and to generate economic and environmental benefits at the same time. Thank you very much.
Articulating the exact technical process that Huadian has been involved, and I think all those technical experience, if that can be further shared among your peers, that will even have a better environmental impact for the region. 下面我们还有一位是这个通。
Well, we have a distinguished guests coming from the virtual platform, the China Development Bank, who had issued over 500 billion RMB worth of green financing. You serve as an important source of green financing to BRI green and sustainability projects. So could you give us more color as to how the China Investment Bank are contributing to green finance? Well, thank you very much. Thank you. Today, we are really honored to be part of this seminar. I just heard 3 peer panelists sharing their stories, which is very inspiring. And I would like to talk a little bit about China Development Bank and our efforts in contributing to green finance and sustainability. So China Development Bank is the first initiative, is the first organization taking part in the UN Global Compact from China. And we incorporate green and sustainability into our long-term business development. Over the past couple of years, we have been acting responsibly, as well as contributing more to green and sustainability development. We trying to implement the principle before, during, and after our investment. And also, we take count of local situations, bearing in mind the requirement for land and environmental protection. We play our role in guiding our clients in their green and sustainable projects through our financial support. We set up ESG evaluation models, and these will be taken into consideration when we are rating our clients when evaluating their applications, so that they will be able to enjoy preferential conditions on their loans if they act green. We set up strong mechanisms and rules internally to gather information with regard to carbon emission and energy consumption, so that we'll be able to have a clearer picture as to how the life cycle of a project looks like in terms of environmental performances. Well, as everybody knows, that responding to climate change and supporting green economy has become a common sense amongst all countries in the world. BRI initiative is now playing a very big role in driving green economy and sustainability. China Development Bank is more than willing to work together with parties across the world when it comes to the designing of green products, sustainability, as well as the exchanges of insights when it comes to low carbon transport and green economy. Well, China Development Bank will continue our efforts in making innovations with regard to green products and to set up better supervising and regulation mechanisms on green projects, so that we'll be able to drive for higher quality development as a financial institution.
您在这个正好在线上。
Thank you. Well, Mr. Wang, since you are joining us online, I'd like to take this opportunity to ask you a question. Your bank is the national team, if you will, and it represents the direction of national strategy in green development. And green, as President Xi says, will be the feature of Belt and Road projects going forward. So, as the main force of green development, how do you work with different partner countries in the BRI and other financial institutions to channel funds into the development of Belt and Road? Can you please say more about that? Thank you. Since BRI was introduced 10 years ago, our bank has issued a great number of loans covering infrastructure, energy, resources, energy, and capacity cooperation. Our business has covered over 100 countries. In this process, our bank has been committed to sustainability, and we have been very active in promoting and participating in international cooperation. We did three things. One, we were very active in channeling funds into green finance, working with multiple parties. We covered green finance, ESG, etc. We work with other institutions. We signed a Belt and Road Green Finance and Investment Principle Agreement, and we developed a Green Finance Partnership, and we were involved Belt and Road Green Finance Initiative. At the same time, as a multi-stakeholder cooperation platform, we included green finance in 2026 strategy of Shanghai Cooperation Organization. We also work with BRICS countries by signing a MOU on responsible investment. So we incorporated environment and social factors into green finance. So responsible investment philosophy can be translated into practical projects. We also worked with a climate task force of the UN Secretary General and the French banks in the formulation of multilateral policy documents. Second, we are very active in BRI projects in green finance. Along the Belt and Road, we were very active in promoting projects in clean energy and other environmental friendly projects bring benefits to local population with very positive social impact. For example, our bank worked with IFC in a hydropower station in Pakistan. This project was in line with IFC environment protection and social impact standards, and it received the award for the best hydropower station in Asia Pacific. We also worked with the French bank in a sewage plant in Senegal, and this project would enable local population to enjoy better living conditions, especially reducing the communicable diseases related to water quality. Our bank supported the very first waste-to-power, waste-to-energy project in Thailand, and every day this project can handle over 500 tons of household wastes. We have a PV station, a solar power project in Bulgaria, meeting the electricity need of 35,000 local households. And on top of that, we also supported Laos and Pakistan in their wind power and hydropower stations. Thirdly, we are active in studying innovative green finance products. Last year, we worked with International Development Agency of China in setting up a $5 billion fund responding actively to international need for cooperation. At the same time, as a bond issuer, we issued the very first climate financing investment bond of $6 billion. So green and the climate finance can be translated into financial products, and it has garnered very strong interest. This is the first attempt in green finance from China, and all the fund raised will be used in climate financing and investment. So more social funds will be channeled to climate change initiatives, and with dynamic adjustment of interest rate, this mechanism would allow us to grant loans to a Shandong gold mining company. This would be an incentive for the company to improve their level of energy reduction and corporate governance. And this project also received an award in Hong Kong for its performance in green finance. We will be committed to responsible investment principle, and we look forward to working with all parties in promoting the green finance along the Belt and Road countries. Thank you, Mr. Wang, and thank you to China Development Bank as a founding partner of our initiative, and I hope we will see more contribution from your bank. We have heard a lot about how we can use green finance principles to promote the development of green finance. I mean, you are a practitioner in EPC plus F. Along BRI countries, there is a large amount of wind power, solar power, and hydropower. So we could use different financial vehicles to address local challenges. Can you please share with us of Huadian Company how you can channel these funds into the local needs? Well, thank you for the question. Our company, Huadian, has been working on Belt and Road Initiative projects. We've been involved in Indonesia, Cambodia, Vietnam, Russia, Spain, among other 20 countries. And the total installed capacity is 5 million kilowatt. Some landmark projects include one in Cambodia. We are one of the largest electricity operators in that country. And in Vietnam, we are the largest Chinese electricity operator in that country. At the same time, in clean energy, there are a few features of our development. First, we value clean energy and low carbon energy. So through international collaboration, we actively explored green energy, including hydrogen, methanol, carbon capture and sequestration, among other technologies. At the same time, we value sustainable value and our social responsibility. For example, Mr. Wang from the National Development Bank mentioned the projects in Indonesia. We could receive financing support from their bank. The project in Bali, Indonesia, was responsible for 50% of local electricity demand. In 2022, at the G20 conference there, the electricity plant was able to supply the conference with a sufficient electricity guarantee. And for that, we received a letter of recognition from the Indonesian government, and this was widely covered by international media as well. At the same time, we tried our best to tell good stories of China. Through exemplary projects, we showed the capabilities of our company, and we showed to the world how Chinese people can work with other countries in realizing their dreams and building people-to-people bonds and cultural bonds. Frankly speaking, in these projects, especially in the financing process, we would face different difficulties, political, economic, cultural, policy changes, and natural challenges and risks. But despite all of this, we hope that we can make use of Hong Kong as an international city with a free flow of funds, working with international investors, so we can work together for a safe, economical, smart, and green modern energy system. In green financing, I'd like to touch upon 3 points. First, we actively explore multilateral collaboration possibilities so we can build a reliable environment for investors. We make sure that we play on a level playing field for common development. First, we work with BRI countries in exploring collaborative schemes and collaborative policies that can benefit each other, so we can create some cross-border investment policies to reduce cost and enlarge the currencies for investment. For example, we coordinated the system. We addressed the problem of mismatch between financing income and electricity demands. At the same time, we work with BRI countries and other entities in diversifying our financing vehicles and channels to reduce cost. to set up some benign cooperational systems and frameworks so we can develop some risk-sharing system. Therefore, we can create a better environment, a better marketplace for financing and investment. And other than that, we need to coordinate different financing resources. Our company has a AAA rating in China in terms of credit assurance, and in other countries, we have very high. We have the highest sovereignty rating. At the same time, our company has a treasurer in Hong Kong responsible for the management of financing needs, risk management, etc. So we can work together for our BRI project overseas. I will encourage all the investors in this room to work with our Treasury Department in Hong Kong. We will give it a full play so it can help us implement our strategies. On top of that, we work with BRI countries and the investees to seize the opportunities of RMB internationalization, and we must make full use of the low cost of CNY onshore, so we can share the benefit, the dividends from China's economic development. And thirdly, we must be very innovative in financing and investment. We need to target clean energy projects with specific targeted investment and financing schemes in terms of credit facility, investment terms, and investment cost. We need to balance all these factors by working together towards a modern energy system. I'd like to take this opportunity to show the logo of our company. Well, there are two elements. One is the dark blue color and the other light blue color. This was a logo designed back in 2022 when our company was established. So it means the two colors show the colors of sea and sky. So from the very beginning of our company, we had clean energy in our DNA. We are always committed to openness and innovation in our collaboration with all investors, so we can make due contribution to the development of BRI.
You said you were in Sharm el-Sheikh. You had such a wonderful, successful event, a COP, which laid the foundation for the announcement in last COP that just completed in Dubai for triple renewable targets. We noticed that Egypt also, you have updated your national NDC to improve your renewable targets for the country. So, show us some opportunities of Egypt that you talk to the investor to attract them, and how do you see the role that Hong Kong can play to help you to finance those initiatives?
Thank you. Thank you for your questions. As I mentioned previously, as Egypt is already now currently shifting its energy sector from the gas to renewable sources, such as wind and solar, to take advantage of its strategic location and for accessing global markets and green products. As you mentioned, the country has succeeded in updating the nationally determined contributions in the NDCs in June 2023 to advance its timeline to increase renewable energy to 42% by 2030 instead of 2035. And recently, about the opportunities, the Egyptian electricity company and the China Electric Power Equipment and Technology have signed an MOU to initiate preliminary studies and measurements for development of 10 gigawatt solar energy project. The mega solar energy project is expected to reduce about 14 million tons of carbon dioxide emissions. Concerning the relation between Egypt and Hong Kong, the potential cooperation, as you mentioned, I think Egypt could make use of Hong Kong's well-developed financial ecosystem and rich talent pool to raise capital through issuing bonds or equities in Hong Kong. And the Egyptian officials, we have so many Egyptian officials came recently to Hong Kong and to take part in different events here and functions. And we had very fruitful discussions with the high officials here in Hong Kong, and they have discussed the possibility of issuing Egyptian bonds in local currency, whether in Hong Kong dollars or in RMB. We assume it could help connect Egyptian investors with Hong Kong and mainland China. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. And let's go to Tracy to help us to deepen our understanding. So Tracy, what's your response to the ambassador's call on more Hong Kong investors to participate in the general Green BRI development, but also specific for the Egyptian opportunity? We also have a question actually from the audience talking about the recent extension of the coverage in Hong Kong of the Green Finance Grant Scheme of the transition financial instruments. So wearing your hats on the secretary for the Hong Kong Green Finance Association, what's the solution Hong Kong can provide?
Okay, I think, can you hear me okay? So I know we're completely overrun, so I'll be very quick. So I think I answered the first questions first in Hong Kong's role. I think we heard from Eddie during this Green Week already, and also Likana this morning. So Hong Kong, as already well-established international green sustainable finance hub, we're already raising over a third of the green and sustainable financing in the region in Asia. So with that, I think through my other head of the association, so by connecting investor and projects along the Belt and Road. So under the HKGFA Hong Kong Green Finance Associations, we have been working with Green Investment Principle and also the Hong Kong TDC, Trade Development Council, established this green project database connecting, showcasing green projects along the Belt and Road. And this is actually on the GFA and also the Hong Kong TDC website. So feel free to go and check the projects and match the owners. And also, coming back to your second question on the Hong Kong Green and Sustainable Grant Scheme with the extension of transition financing. I think this is a very, very good development because I hope all of you that already know the Green Grant Scheme in Hong Kong has been very successful. From launching it, covering the bond only, to the extension of bond and loan over the last few years. Most of the financing that we raise in Hong Kong, we're already applying. Why this is important? Beyond just the subsidy of funding, the providing subsidy on second-party opinion and also the external validation, this kind of push the standard of all our green transactions up in the market as well, because with the encouragement of having a second-party opinion, having that importance of external market data validation is super important. And with this grant scheme, it will help the issuer to go through this process. And with the extension of transition financing, again, transition financing is a very nascent development in the market, but it's super important because in order for our economy to arrive to net zero, we can't just do green. We have to also look at the high carbon intensive industry. With this transition financing, it's very important to really bring us to net zero. And with that, with the grant, riding on the success of the grant scheme, with the expansion of this transition financing, it will definitely help the market to further advance in this addressing climate and raising financing, and in Hong Kong. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And with that, I think we really need to conclude our session. Then thank you very much. Sorry for my poor management of the time, but I should share with you, Tracy, I got the instruction that we got the grace period of 20 minutes extension for our time. So I think thank you for the really fruitful discussion. So let's give a round of applause to our panelists for their wonderful, wonderful contribution.
Welcome back. For the next panel discussion, our speakers will discuss solutions to address the financing gaps in the green development of BRI. Speakers will share their observations on the current financing gaps and the potential solutions to address these gaps. Now, may I invite our panelists to the stage? 丝路基金投资三部负责人陈志平 Mr. 志平陈 Head of Investment 3, Silk Road Fund. Mr. Jonathan Drew, Head of Global Banking Sustainability, Asia Pacific, HSBC. 中国节能环保香港投资有限公司副总经理杨兴 Mr. Xing Yang, Deputy General Manager of China Energy Conservation and Environmental Protection, Hong Kong Investment. 中银香港可持续策略发展总监瞿抗 Dr. Kang Chu, Managing Director of Sustainability Strategy, Bank of China, Hong Kong. And Mr. Mustafa Haider Saeed, Executive Director of Pakistan China Institute, joining us online today. Our moderator will be Ms. Irina Fan, Director of Research, Hong Kong Trade and Development Council. Ms. Fan, please.
Thank you. Welcome all. And, I understood there is a very excited discussion in the previous session, so we will try to keep it as excited as possible. Okay, so 10 years after the announcement of the BMO initiatives, so I think the BMO engagement already exceeds US $1 trillion, and then green and sustainable infrastructure projects are increasingly the focus. So, for example, I think in 2023, China's green energy engagement in solar, wind, and biomass was about, already close to $8 billion US, and also another 1.6 billion into hydropower. So this certainly represent huge opportunities in terms of projects, as well as strong demand for financing, right? So, so that's why we are here today, right? So today we are honored to have a number of experts in the field to share with us how they go after these opportunities and the challenges as well. The first question, I'm told to, let the speakers choose their own preferred language. And, in the speakers' room, Jonathan prefers to choose Chinese. Let's see. Just kidding. So, 我第一个问题是想问
My first question goes to Mr. Yang. The state-owned enterprises from China, SOEs, have a lot of projects in BRI countries. Do you think we have any financial gap in the development of your BRI projects? Well, thank you for the question. Our group is the single SOE in China which is involved in energy reduction and environmental protection initiatives. We have business in 170 countries, and we serve over 39 countries along BRI countries. We have 300 projects. BRI projects account for nearly 80% of our overseas business. And our group, CECEP, these projects are an example of our initiatives to implement the environmental strategies of China. I think we have different ways to calculate how large the financial gap would be. China has its own calculation, and we are also calculating that in our own way. I believe in the next 10 years, there will be a $5 trillion gap in BRI countries. Now, we are faced with such big challenge with a huge financial gap. I think there are two solutions. First, some BRI countries have very weak infrastructure. Some green projects will take a long time to recover their cost, and the investment return is not high. So we work with banks, insurers in working on a risk-sharing system. As a company, I think this is in urgent need. Secondly, when we are exploring the BRI projects, we are in need of a common standard. For example, risk estimation, risk assessment, and risk sharing, etc. So this will work better for the connectivity of BRI projects. Thank you, Mr. Yang.
Like to, share them with investors, and then Jonathan, from bankers, point of view, based on your very extensive experience in the advisory and financing of energy and infrastructure projects, well, which are the key sectors in the Belt and Road initiatives that do you think that are the major, and also what are the major challenges in financing those green transition of these sectors in the Belt and Road countries?
Irina, well, look, firstly, thank you very much for your question, and also to the HKMA, IFFO team and BRIGC, thank you so much for organizing this and inviting HSBC to participate. Really delighted to be here. Let me take your first question, Irina, which is sort of the easier one. What are the sectors? So it's really, I think, the BRI sectors that are critical, very much map to the global challenge, global sectors, global development. So you've got the energy sector, you've got transportation, both of those sectors, and particularly transportation, there'll be huge capital needs to develop those systems. And then you're into industrials, we're into technology sectors, we've got the real estate sector, we've got minerals and mining, which are going to be critical to the transition. And of course, we've got our food systems and a lot of investment there. So those are the sectors where the BRI is going to succeed in driving and meeting its broader development objectives. Your second question is the more challenging one. So what are the challenges? You're asking us here me to talk about the problems with achieving this, supporting a green transition. And I think the first problem is perhaps just thinking about really what does a green transition mean. I think conceptually we can all see and we all know that really sustainable development is the only development option. There is no unsustainable development option. If we're unsustainable, the development won't proceed. So in a sense there, I think when we look across all of those sectors as financiers, we have to make decisions about how we support this in this moving from where we are today, that transition to that green and sustainable future. Now in some areas that's quite straightforward, because if we're presented with a renewable energy project or investment in new energy systems or energy efficiency or those sort of new economy applications, that's very straightforward. The more challenging area, of course, is when we look at the energy systems, and particularly the resources system. So we have to, and certainly we as an institution, we go to great lengths through policies and evaluating what our clients are doing, making sure that we're financing, in a sense, the right part of that. So we know, for example, that the fossil fuel industries are going to be very important to the transition. So we need to be thinking of those projects, making sure that we're financing those projects and those companies that are delivering the energy needs for today, and doing that and protecting the environment as they do that, but also at the same time how that energy and the minerals and the resources are then being used to grow and develop the new energy systems that will ultimately disrupt the old energy systems. So that's how we will try to assess how we undertake that, and that's a big challenge. And in a sense, we then have to be very careful and probably move away if we think that what we don't want to be doing is supporting investments in fossil fuels that are displacing a viable green alternative. So that's a complex area, and that's, there's been a lot of talk this week around how taxonomies might have a role in that, but I don't want to get into that area, just leave that challenge. Then if we look at sort of where we are, and it is energy across the $1 trillion, I think, accumulated per the Green Finance and Development Center number, $1 trillion that's been invested. It's about 35% energy and about 25%, I think, in transport. Although interesting, in the later years, we're now seeing minerals and tech investments proving more and more important. And within the energy piece, that 35%, we are seeing that transition. So we're seeing coal has dropped almost to zero. Energy has come down. We've got nuclear coming in. Oil has dropped a bit and gas has grown a bit. So I think, the fossil fuel part of that energy piece is down from, about 70% over the average down now to nearer 50 to 60%. So we are seeing that transition, and of course green is growing to fill that gap. So that's a positive outcome. Now, if we then think of the other challenge, of course, is when we think about the Belt and Road countries, 150 Belt and Road countries, we need to bring capital. In terms of bringing capital at scale, we have to recognize that only about a quarter of those countries in the Belt and Road are investment grade. And if you drop the barrier down to BB and greater, it goes up to about a third. So we've got a lot of markets in there that will not, as sovereigns, be able to go out and readily tap into the broader global capital market. So you can immediately see that there's going to be a very diverse set of financial solutions here, from the wider capital markets to other types of funding, and I'm sure we'll get on to blended finance. So that's another challenge. That's sort of challenge 2. So if you bring those 2 together, it's then how do we find the investable projects that meet those green transition criteria, is the sort of the overall statement of the challenge. And I'm sure we'll get into the solutions around project design, risk allocation, appropriate financial support for projects, so that we look at the progress we've made, but the challenge now, of course, is how do we accelerate that and do more of it.
Thank you, Jonathan, for your very insightful sharing. So when he brought up a lot of challenges, I'm sure that he will let us know what will be some of the possible solutions later. Okay, let us move on to another speaker. So, Chen Zhongjian, 我们知道市
Mr. Chen, so the Silk Road Fund in Asia, in Africa, and European countries, we realize that you have a lot of projects coming up in the pipeline, and by 2023, you are in over 70 countries with a promised funding of over 23 billion US dollars. So my questions for you is that maybe what kind of challenges or obstacles you've overcame during the process compared with what Mr. Johnson Zhu had said. Any challenges you've encountered before? Well, thank you very much for inviting me. It is my great honor to be part of this seminar and this panel. Well, I believe that we are now on a very interesting topic, the gap in green financing. Against the backdrop of BRI, Belt and Road Initiative. So for Silk Road Fund was established at the foundation of BRI. After 9 years of operation, we have now been investing in over 70 countries with over 20 billion US dollars already. So we've been reflecting as to how we can better stick with the principle of green investment and long-term sustainability investment. In our day-to-day operations, we do encounter challenges, especially in emerging countries, emerging economies. According to the United Nations statistics, in order to achieve net carbon targets between 2020 to 2030, there's a gap of 5.6 trillion US dollars worth of investment shortages. In our observation in the financial market, whether you talk about the equity market or the bond market or private placement market or loan market, well, all these subsector markets put together is by far exceeding the gap required by the United Nations. And over the previous years, where you had a pretty, lower interest rate with abundant liquidity, but still you suffered from lack of finance a few years back. Well, I believe that there is this systematic shortcomings, but looking forward, we are talking about emerging economies, we're talking about investment in the infrastructure is not strong enough. We need to think about it, put it into perspective, take into the consideration the local situation, the national economic and social situation, as well as their legal systems in the emerging economies, because if they want to attract foreign capital, they need to present that they have a strong enough legal system and framework to support that foreign investment. And now there are things to be improved, of course. There are multilateral banks or financial institutions out there in the world who are promoting and supporting a better mechanism on a legal basis in financial cases to attract global investors. But I think for the time being, to some extent, it is a structural issue that we need to address. So you need to think both on the demand and supply side of the capital. So I do hope that in the future we can gradually fill up this gap. And for the longer term, green finance has its own feature. We are talking about green. The concept of green is probably evolving over time. In the past, as you said, there is a lukewarm attitude from the financial institutions in the past, and then now people are scrambling for opportunities on PV and wind. And then again, people have been reflecting last year on ESG and maybe greenwashing or some attitude against ESG came up. So I think conceptual-wise, we need to better define green, and this is a evolving concept as we move along. So I believe that we would in a more comfortable and better position when we are talking about making a green investment. Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chen. Thank you for sharing with us from Silk Road Fund. And again, we have another distinguished guest from the Bank of China.
Because I think the previous three speakers also mentioned about, say, the duration of the matching of the investment, the risk as well. So we especially would like to focus on, with Bank of China's cross-border green solutions and funding experience, to share with us a bit, how's the funding for green projects in the Belt and Road countries. Thank you.
好的，谢谢主持人。
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Well, I will try to be efficient as possible. Well, I think I have two sentences to share. First is that we are one of a mainstream local bank 5 years ago, we became a regional bank, BOC Hong Kong. We do expand our businesses in Asian markets so that we're closer to the BRI. And we have concluded a number of deals in Southeast Asian countries. And just as what Jonathan said and Mr. Chen, there is this standard issue. From an ESG perspective, if we are trying to evaluate whether or not a project is bankable, we look at their local compliance requirement, the regulatory requirement, which is a minimum that we have to look at, and then we take into consideration the local income levels, the local economic situation, and then we refer to the international standard as to how the norms are like. Now, when we are making our decisions as to whether or not to say yes or no, we also consider the economic and social impact in the region. So we need to strike a balance between the efforts in making the environment better versus whether or not there's financial benefits and whether or not it's financially feasible. So what we need to do, next step, we need to accelerate our work. We need to make it more comprehensive, but of course it cannot be achieved overnight. A fully functioning mechanism with every pieces there. So how we can further size up our financial investments.
So Mustafa, or as one of the most vulnerable regions to climate shocks, South Asia is pioneering many climate-smart solutions. In your view, what are the key issues or challenges that facing the region in obtaining financings to accelerate and scale up those efforts and projects?
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be there, and Zhao Shanghao to our Chinese friends. I think that, number one, we see that there's a gold rush. There's a scramble for green financing from particularly the emerging and frontier markets. And there is not a mainstream process, a democratized, equitable process for countries like Pakistan to access this finance. And I was at the COP along with my dear friend, Mr. Janyu of the Belt and Road Green Development Alliance. And there we heard that countries in the global south need to work harder to unlock this finance and these green investments. But why are they locked in the first place? This is a question that countries in the global south have from the biggest emitters in the world, particularly those that are in the West. And I feel that when we talk about green financing and green investment, we a lot of the times look towards and have a prism of going to multilateral institutions or going towards certain big countries that can support global south countries. But I think that we need to have a more entrepreneurial approach, which we see is missing so far. Climate entrepreneurship, which can create wealth, I think is required. Otherwise, countries like Pakistan, I think, will continue waiting in the line. And the line, I think, is very, very long. So I think climate entrepreneurship and creating enterprise and wealth through opportunities is, I think, very important. And also, our area, our countries, including Pakistan, we have outdated grid infrastructure, transmission lines, our tariff determination structure which will eventually give that incentive for investors to invest in any project, is outdated, and we need to liberalize through energy sector reforms. So investors can actually make a smart grid, which is actually a prerequisite for renewable energy investments. And I also feel that somehow we have confined this climate emergency that particularly we have in countries like Pakistan. As you may know, 30 million people, which is the size of 3 or 4 Scandinavian countries, have been dislocated from their homes on the coastline of Pakistan a year and a half ago because of flash floods, even though Pakistan contributes only 0.8% to greenhouse emissions. Climate is still not a political priority. We have left the work on climate to activists, to think tanks, to international donor organizations. But the countries themselves at the top level, I think we need to have that political priority. And that will only happen when the people of the country realize and are made aware of how their daily lives, their existence, their economic situation is being directly impacted by climate change. And once the populace of a country is aware and cognizant and mindful, they will make sure to hold accountable the political elite. And it will then become a political priority of a country. I think that is very important. And the last point to your question, madam, is somehow our focus has been, when we talk about green financing and green investment, in the discourse, we usually just hear green renewable investments, renewable energy, which is very, very important, of course. However, in densely populated countries like my country, 240 million people inhabit Pakistan. And if you look at South Asia, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Bhutan, this is almost a fourth of the population of the world, if not more. And we have a transport problem. We have way too many cars on fossil fuels. This is a bigger problem, and this is more urgent, in my opinion, than renewable investments. And no matter how much green energy may we prioritize, till the way of life and the mode of transport does not change, we know that the biggest emissions and emitters are vehicles and cars and transport. So I will just give you an example of my city, Islamabad, where I was born and bred. It's the capital. And it is surrounded by the Himalayan mountains. So if you are in central Islamabad, you can see mountains which are 5 kilometers away. You can go hiking, you don't need to go far away. It used to be one of the cleanest cities in the world when I was growing up. Right now, my kids need to wear masks when they go to school because the air quality is oftentimes hazardous, only because of vehicles, because Islamabad has had a lot of migration from other cities, and there are way too many cars on the road. So I think that the transport issue, changing the way of life and having a mass transit system for global South countries where the populations usually are predominantly very high, like China has done very successfully in its mass transit revolution, which I would say.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your sharing. I mean, well, I know that we are close to the end, but I would like to still invite our speakers, especially those on the floor. We got, really very strong voices from, Pakistan saying that, really they need, they're waiting too long. And I really love the word that entrepreneurship, right? To do their own way. And then Jonathan have also mentioned a lot about, it is important to also finance the transition, right? Not just, the final target as well. So maybe let me invite each of the speakers to give, 3 sentences to give the hints to the audience what could be the solutions that you could offer, and then afterwards they can come to you to know a bit more, right? May I just start with Kent and then do it like this?
好的，谢谢主持人。我
Thank you. I think I need to answer the question that I raised myself. Under the current framework, BOC and other banks have done a lot. Our experience is that for BRI projects, first, we must be involved in projects as early as possible, getting access to more information so we can play our role in imposing more bankable impact on these projects. For example, if some countries, some companies have very high ratings and good corporate governance, and we will prioritize them in our collaboration. What about Mr. Yang? Any solutions that we can use to address the financing gaps? Give me 3 points, 10 seconds. I think the key is to play the guiding role of policy banks. This is our inevitable role. Second of all, today we have the leadership of the Silk Fund, but there are a lot of prerequisites for the participation of a fund, because we need to bear in mind the risks and all these things. Thirdly, standard setting is important. We have a lot of stakeholders, both from China and overseas. They have different standards. In China, ministries have their own standards, and foreign investors have their standards which are different. So we need a common framework so we can discuss how we can collaborate further. Jonathan.
Irina, here we go. So we need smart policy, as Mr. Said rightly said. We need technologies in the real economy to deliver low carbon solutions. We need financing, and we need financial innovation, and we need to address these inclusion and democratization points that were raised. We need places where we can convene and join and bring information together and match buyers and sellers and so forth. And we need partners in this process. We need to work together. We need to collaborate. And of course, each one of us needs to then have the energy and the determination to make those changes. Now, when I put those headings up and I have a column, Hong Kong contribution, I've got a pretty big tick on each line. So, we have all of those. We heard from the Commission this morning some of the technologies we're developing here. I don't need to remind people, Hong Kong MA for the Hong Kong government, tokenized green bonds going out just a couple of weeks ago, and we can do so much more in that space. We heard from the Consul General of Egypt earlier how Hong Kong, and we were delighted to play a part in this, help Egypt raise green pandas here in Hong Kong. So we have all of that. We've got the IFC partnerships for blended finance. It's a tick in pretty much every box, Irina.
Thank you, Jonathan. Chen Zhongjian.
Mr. Chen? Well, I mentioned the structural problem of the gap. So first, I think we need more mid to long-term equity investors like the Silk Road Fund. Last year, we worked with MA in a collaborative investment platform in which green investment was an important component. We hope more institutions can take part in mid to long-term equity investment. Secondly, in emerging markets, their investments in renewable energy and energy transition should be different from developed countries. It must be progressive. The so-called green investment must be very flexible, different from advanced economies. as investors, we must be responsible. Our decision-making process must be in line with ESG standards, working to high standards.
We are already overrun a little bit, so let me sum up. So I really loved, what Jonathan has mentioned, that, not sustainable is not an option, right? And then, but then it is also important that we also hear from all the other, users, speakers, project owners, that it's important to also to bridge the transition. So we have a lot of, innovative solutions, and, but then it's important from financing world perspective that we have some standard, right, to help, scale up the investment. But the standards should be, taking into consideration for the local community's point of view. So that's why Pakistan is saying that, we wait too long, right? So we hope that, we could have harmonizations, for international standard, but at the same time, taking into consideration of the local development. And then I really love, what Johnson mentioned, that Hong Kong get a lot of ticks, during the process in helping this transition and development. So thank you all for joining us for this panel discussion today. Thank you.
Thanks to our speakers. Coming up next is the panel discussion featuring carbon finance. Speakers will talk about carbon financing opportunities in the region and experiences in leveraging our carbon credits to support green efforts. Our moderator for this panel will be Ms. Kristen Lo, Chief Development Strategist at the Institute for the Environment, Hong Kong University of Science and Technology. We also have Mr. Stuart Beavis, Regional Lead of Dutch Fund for Climate and Development Asia, WWF Hong Kong. Ms. Grace Hui, CEO of Net Zero Asia. Mr. John Lo, founder of Asia Carbon Institute, and Mr. Tasso Zavis Tsanakis, co-head of APAC Sustainable Finance Office at UBS. Please.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. And we promise you we will finish no later than 12:25, if that's okay with everyone. So what we heard actually throughout this week is the green revolution requires a huge amount of funding. And we need funding for green projects. We need funding for brown projects. So in terms of carbon financing, our panel is really to discuss really what this is about and how we fit in, and the importance of course, Belt and Road. So Grace, I'm going to come to you. Grace is very interesting. Her transformation after being at the stock exchange is to go into her passion to actually develop projects. And I know you've been going around the world looking for projects where carbon credits could be created, but you want high quality credits. So what are some of the latest projects that you have in your portfolio?
Thank you, Christine. Hello, everyone. And thank you to HKMA for organizing this whole wonderful Green Week for Hong Kong. We kind of really need that push for Hong Kong. So just coming back to your question, I basically do two types of projects. One type is carbon removal, and the other is carbon avoidance. The difference is that the avoidance credits basically is to reduce the amount of greenhouse gas emission. And in Hong Kong, I'm focusing on retrofit buildings. We have more than 50,000 buildings in Hong Kong, and 81% is actually residential. We do not have enough money to go around to retrofit these buildings. So we need to find a way to improve the energy efficiency of these buildings. And if we were to measure the business as usual operational carbon emissions of the buildings versus the projection carbon reduction after the retrofits, the surplus is what we can sell as carbon credits. And so these are the type of projects I'm focusing in Hong Kong. For carbon removal projects, these are primarily in China. and these are still demonstration projects. Now, carbon removals basically is to prevent any more, well, actually, it's not just prevent, it's to reduce the carbon emission concentration in the atmosphere. Now, for these, I am focused on technologies rather than nature-based, which I'm sure Stuart will talk about. And these are mainly carbon capture, usage, and storage. I have clients that have actually been capturing carbon dioxide since 2005. They have been using these carbon dioxide for actually enhanced oil recovery. Now, I have been persuading them to actually think about how we can actually capture carbon dioxide and actually store underground. Now, in China, we have a lot of areas where we can store. However, the source of these carbon dioxide is nowhere near where you can actually store. So you need to look at the geological grounds of where you can store these carbon dioxide. So these are the projects I'm looking at. In terms of quality, this is actually very important because our clients actually want to have these projects developed, and actually they don't necessarily want to sell immediately because the price isn't that great at the moment, and they want to actually keep it for sale in the future. So we can talk a little bit about that later.
Yeah, we'll come back and talk about how the market really is. But Tassos, you and I have talked before about buildings in Hong Kong and how we can, from a financing angle, do massive number of buildings and what policies are needed. But Grace today, she talked about removal technology, which is perhaps a newer thing for many people. So your comments?
Thank you, and thank you again. Equally like for Hong Kong, a great weekend, what HKMA has done in the government. It's fascinating and bringing us all together. Look, along the lines of what Grace was saying, I think always, when we started, even as a bank looking at that, I think you need to start understanding a little bit the carbonomics, right? You need of how the markets, financial markets, and how carbon need to intersect. So that you can understand the size of the risk as well as the opportunity. So the numbers top down, we've got, and it's important to understand that, 120 trillion that is required until net zero. That's approximately 6 trillion every year that needs to be spent. Now, we've done our own analysis in terms of, and what would that require in order to get there. Naturally, you will have a lot of money that needs to be spent in the companies in order to reduce their emissions. But at the same time, you need to have that nascent type of industry that doesn't exist today, didn't exist 5 years ago. If you exclude the nature stuff that we're going to talk later, which contribute about 2 billion of gigatons of removal every year if we protect it. On top of that, we will probably by 2050 need to get to about 4 to 8 gigatons of CO2 removal overall. So we're at that junction that maybe we have from nature too. By 2050, we will need to have another 4. How much is that going to cost us? We've done some kind of calculations, and that is estimated around another 300 to 600 billion every year that needs to be spent, just purely in order to develop this technological carbon removal that Grace was talking. I mean, you can break it down then to some of the subsectors, whether that's direct air carbon capture, whether that's biological carbon capture, whether it's biochar, whether it's rock weathering, weather mineralization, rock mineralization. There's a lot of stuff that can be done there. The challenge with these very nascent technologies that don't exist, and it's a new industry that will need to be scaled over the 20 years. I mean, that's the takeaway point, right? There's a huge new industry that it's built, just literally started over the last 5 years, and will need to be scaled massively over the next 20, 30 years. It's our insurance for our planet. Beyond the nature, we will need nature, but we also need to buy that insurance. And the thing that the analysis that we've done, and when we've looked at all the engineering and technologies, we shouldn't underestimate the effort that it's not a case of, even if we had the 300 billion to spend today, we're not going to get the carbon removal tomorrow. These are big infrastructure projects that will require at least 5 to 10 years to basically get on, let's say, the carbon grid to allow us to remove. So we need to be spending now in order to give us chances for 10 to 10 years. And we need to continue investing in order to scale that. So it will naturally create a very interesting, I would say, critical infrastructure for countries that are quite smart in order to build that now. And it is very relevant to Belt and Road, because when you look at Belt and Road and about the 100 countries, we're talking about these effectively financed emissions. These emissions end up with the countries that are receiving the infrastructure. And it's quite interesting when you look at that. I mean, the countries that are receiving that financing make now about 20 to 30% of the total carbon emissions. By 2050, if everyone else does what they're doing, they're going to contribute 60%. That carbon will have to be removed. And there's already some really good examples with Core Climate, which in Hong Kong, right? Because we always need to be thinking how Hong Kong can help support also China decarbonization as it's exporting this infrastructure. We had some really good cases with companies that are producing in China, right? And building out in Belt and Road, buying, let's say, carbon credits in particular through Core Climate. So there's some very interesting innovation that's happening out there.
Right, this is obviously going to be a really major area for the world. Stuart, let me come to you. You know, you're a conservationist. Hearing all of this, what do you think? And of course, in the nature-based solution area, share your thoughts with us.
Well, I've sat here for 3-4 days and heard about risks and sovereign credit levels and price earnings ratios, EBITDA. I think the risk is there's 37 billion tons of CO2 emissions last year. I think the risk is 10 million hectares of forests were lost. Think what 10 million hectares is. Take all the land mass in Hong Kong, all the islands, the new territories, add it all together, times it by 90, and that's every year we lose that. 95% of all of this is either in Latin America or Southeast Asia. And as we all know, that's a 2-hour flight away. So we've got a lot of work to do, okay? One of my big fears is that carbon credits are mainly being used as another form of money and a cheap way for people to literally show their emission reductions. So I'm going to be a bit negative, unfortunately, so bear with me on this. So number one, corporates buy carbon credits to offset emissions. That's very good. Okay, we all understand that. So what does the corporate do then? Well, either deliberately or not deliberately, they do nothing. And that's a problem. Because by doing nothing, they're telling the world, by buying carbon credits, I'm net zero or whenever they're going to be there, but they're not. So it's business as usual. Okay, that's not good. Number two, the projects. This is a major problem. You know, we talk about carbon credits not delivering enhanced benefits. Now, what's an enhanced benefit? Now, what is actually going to kill us in the end is the fact that we're going to destroy biodiversity. So number one, we need biodiversity positive, nature positive, and we need social angles. We need a social inclusion positive in all these projects. We're not really getting that at the moment. Remember, carbon credits are really cheap, so much so that our friends in China don't even want to sell them. You know, we'll wait for the market to go up. If carbon credits were $100 each, not $3.50, all of a sudden, people wouldn't be buying carbon credits. They'd actually be doing the work about the emissions in their own individual businesses. So that's something to think about. So when I go back to this biodiversity positive, nature positive, WWF hat on type stuff, and do remember I'm the banker in the room who used to trade derivatives for 25 years, okay? What do I mean by that? Trees being grown on ecosystems that don't use trees. That destroys biodiversity. Monoculture. We grow lots of non-indigenous trees in one area. What does that do? It actually kills biodiversity. Okay? Biodiversity is actually going to hit all the economies at some point very, very quickly. The next thing is, does anyone actually do any intercropping? And do we have a social angle on that? And here's a great thing. Indigenous people being moved off their land because we want to create a carbon credit forest. That's a good idea as well, isn't it? Next thing is double accounting. Oh, we love this one. So we have a funder for a project who comes along and says, I'm going to fund this great piece of work in whatever country it is, and we will claim the credit. At the same time, and we heard earlier about national determined contributions, the host country also declaims the credit as well. So we've now got double accounting. That undermines the Paris Agreement, and also we get people who sit around and say, well, we've both done a great bit of work here, and therefore we can actually use more emissions. Next thing is we go back to the price. You know, and price and quantity, We all understand, and having coming from the corporate world and the finance world, we want to do things as cheaply as possible. We're all very happy to buy them at $3.5, and as we know, we're not happy to sell them at $3.5. So at $3.5, we will buy as many carbon credits as we can. Brilliant. What does that mean, though? It means that the actual quality of the project is very low. Okay, something to all very much bear in mind. Sorry for being so negative about this, but I'm going to continue. What's the next thing I wrote in my little notes? We'll go back to double accounting, forget that. Who are we selling these things to? Who exactly is buying the carbon credits? You know, I can talk from WWF here, it doesn't really bother me so much. I can talk about oil companies and gas companies, and I can talk about coal mining groups, all being very happy to buy carbon credits at $3.5. Who owns the end credit? Very important. Next thing, famous cases of where carbon credit is not a carbon credit. We all know the classic story of the 90% of rainforest offsets, which were just ghost credits. You know, the great story that was in every newspaper that said there was no deforestation reduction because they were protecting forests that were not under threat. That happens very regularly. The whole concept of fabrication of numbers, overestimation, well, we've got to do something about that. Next, self-regulation. Now, coming from investment banking, I know that 2008 told me banks can't regulate themselves. How on earth can carbon credits regulate themselves and people who are designing them? It doesn't work. We 100% need government intervention here. We need much higher compliance and, you know, we need the price to rise. We need monitoring, evaluation of everybody and strict regulations and rules. I'll come back in a minute. Yeah.
Okay. Grace, I'm going to let you come back and, you know, so you guys need to make friends and see how to make it work, right? And bankers out there, it's not just about like trading stocks, right? We do have to clean up the environment. But John, you're a very special person, right? John has a long, long record in the oil and gas industry. So you know everything about carbon capture and so on. But he's decided to create the Asia Carbon Institute. And I do want you to spend 1 minute telling us what it is, because I don't think everybody understands how important it is that now in Asia, we have a carbon setting institution. Please, John.
So first of all, thank you, Christine, and also thank you for the organizers' invitation. So a very great pleasure to be able to share with you the organization that we have created just about a year and a half ago. I mean, the name is called Asia Carbon Institute, in short ACI. What we do is we are a carbon standard organization, setting carbon standard the most credible way we can. And also, we are also a carbon organization which hopefully help the ecosystem to grow by nurturing talent in this space. So those are the two missions and why we set up this organization. So effectively, if there is a genuine carbon reduction or removal projects, they can actually go to us and we'll make sure that it is credible, additional, and contain co-benefits so that we can issue carbon credits that can be traded in the market. And a lot of people ask me, why do we create carbon credits? It's Carbon Credit 101. The reasons for carbon credit is really to use a financial incentive tools to incentivize business owners to decarbonize, otherwise they would not have that incentive. And especially important in Asia, where not too many countries have a carbon ETS system, emission trading schemes or carbon tax. And therefore, a lot of the business owners, heavy industries, high intensity carbon industries, there's not a lot of incentive to decarbonize because there's no rules. And carbon credit can be a viable tool, one of many tools that can incentivize business owners to do that to save our planet. Can I say a couple of things more? Please, because I think, you know, it's great to hear this dialogue. I mean, we have, you know, the bankers here, the developers here, you know, the honest voice in the problem in these ecosystems here, and me running Asia Carbon Institute, sitting in the middle to be the standard bearer, the defender of quality projects. And I think what is common among us is that there are two things. One, there's a true recognition there is a climate issues that we all need to tackle. And the second thing that we all agree to is we need more dialogue. we need the collective voice and collective efforts from the compliance angle, ensure projects are really genuinely done, because the honest voice in this debate is very important. To the project developer, which brings those projects, teach the project's owner to bring those projects up. Otherwise, there will not be enough projects to help us to meet the 1.5. And obviously, the lifeline in terms of lifeblood, in terms of money. Without the financing, it will not work. And me sitting in the middle is to ensure that we have the best quality project, the most credible, so that there's not challenge. There's actually nobody will be afraid of using carbon credits to finance their project, and that's the role of ACI. And hopefully I can allow...
I'm going to repress Grace a little bit first, right? Because I see she wants to respond. There's one thing I've noticed about this panel, and actually we all come from the financial sector. People may not know I was a petrochemical trader in my first life. So, there we are, Philip Brothers, right? Yes. So what we're seeing actually is very experienced people in different aspects of the financial sector learning over time about the importance of the environment, and we've actually shifted to another side to try and do something about it. So I think this is something that this panel shares. So perhaps we can also talk about not just removal, but about avoidance. And I'm going to ask Grace to now come forward and share her thoughts with us. And then Tassos, right, how you look at perhaps avoidance, and then come back to you, Stuart.
So my previous life before this startup is actually I was at the exchange working as a regulator for 7 years. So I know exactly what integrity means and in compliance with standards means. So I appreciate, you know, all the negatives that you mentioned in relation to carbon credits. And that's why having ACI alone is not enough. Having Vera and Gold are not enough. And we need to also have you know, core carbon principles from Integrity Council of Voluntary Carbon Markets. We have a board member sitting here. And we also need to adhere to ICROA. I mean, there's so many acronyms. International Carbon Reductions and Offsets Alliance. Why do we need to have these on top of the standards? Because it is exactly to avoid issues such as, are we displacing a community when we are developing this project that will generate high integrity carbon credits? So, you know, you have to have permanence, no double counting, the reduction is real, et cetera, and independently verified. So we have all of these principles on top of the standards that John talked about. And in terms of the buyers, we're talking about corporates that need to buy. The real economies that are polluting, they have to pay a price for pollution. Given that in Hong Kong, we still don't have a carbon tax, I think we should have a carbon tax in Hong Kong, in addition to having a voluntary carbon credits market. And we need to put a price on carbon, and we have to start with internal carbon pricing. I'll leave it at that first.
Okay, Tassos.
I'll try as quickly as well. Look, we all came with a bit of a history, right, for whatever reason. And, well, well, I'm an electrical engineer. I graduated, Kyoto Protocol started. That was my first probably experience back in '99 when I got involved. Then I had the great experience of having to unwind Lehman's, and Lehman's had a big carbon trading desk. Working with PwC at the time. Now, that was also another experience that showed me. Now, and you could see back then, in all fairness, the real value of carbon credits, right? They were used to scale renewable energy. But what we need to remember, it wasn't that renewable energy was scaled because of carbon credits. There was a lot of capital that went into it. It was just another means, and which we shouldn't forget that, of how carbon credits were being used. And it links a little bit to financing projects now. Projects just purely on carbon credits don't work. Well, it works maybe for certain people that have a very high risk appetite and they're happy to lose their money. And I'm not saying that that's the reality. It's very long term for these projects to develop, whether that's in nature, whether that's in technology. And probably the thing of where I started coming back into it again, I think it's very practical things that I've learned for the last 5 years since we started. I was super fascinated about nature again, and it makes total sense. But then you need to face the reality of a bank, and especially someone like UBS, where culture and quality, we do really try. Of course, we've all had our bad experiences, but the reality is we are trying to figure out how to make this a viable business proposition for our clients. And probably there's media here, I hope I don't, but the reality is the reason, because sometimes we've done quite a lot to build the ecosystem. We've invested 2 projects, we're in investments in Carbon Place, which is an infrastructure. We're investing in demand signals, co-investing with others in carbon removal technologies as well as in nature. So we've done a little bit in terms of learning and also understanding. The reality is that there is a very narrow market that allows you to operate at a bank with the risk appetite that we have. And that's from a reputational perspective. And I would like to build then on Stuart's point. When I look at removals technology and then I look at nature, nature comes with a lot of reputation for the bank in order for us to try and fit it within our infrastructure and framework. We need to find the pockets though, some of it works, but there is a practical limitation to where we can play. When you look at carbon removals, and also the EU doesn't make it more, well, it helps to an extent, but the matter of fact is with the new requirements, when you want to make a claim, avoidance is not part of it. Now, other countries might take a different view, but within the EU, avoidance cannot be used. So you're left with carbon removals, and that's why the point I was saying is that carbon removals will require a lot of capital. It's an infrastructure play where carbon credits can just be a byproduct. So I think quite a lot of banks will start realizing that, like, okay, probably that's the biggest size of the price. And then we do need to find a way of how to finance nature, because we shouldn't forget that nature is financing. The question is does it fit a banking organization?
Okay, what I suggest we do to meet our time constraint is, Stuart, please share your thoughts with us. And I think you have actually 4 people here who could be your friend going forward. And then I'm going to ask each one of you for your, after Stuart shares his views, I'm going to ask each of the 3 of you to just give us your final comments. Stuart, over to you.
Okay. Voluntary carbon market, not a fan, as you can tell. Yep. Let's say, okay, we're going to go along with this voluntary carbon market. And then one of my main reasons there is who actually owns the end credit. That is a major, major issue, and what are they actually doing about their own emissions? But okay, we've got a high integrity project. It ticks that nature positive, biodiversity positive, social inclusion concept that I said. And it's been checked by science-based targets, and we're all very happy with that. And a reputable group has bought it, and they are working on reducing their own emissions. They then retire the credit. Full stop. Because we don't want these credits out in the market getting to the wrong people. And I think that is very, very, very important. The next thing that I would really go on to is it is a huge opportunity. You know, the billions of dollars of carbon credits swishing around the system, you know, are an enormous opportunity to literally solve the biodiversity crisis that is with us right now. We need $711 billion a year, I was told, literally to sort biodiversity out, you know, and that's every year. You know, part of that funding can most definitely come from from credits. What I would say, though, is we need them to be well defined, we need them to be on the landscape, and we need them to be very focused. Because, you know, we have spent a number of years smashing this planet to pieces, and no one said it was ever going to be easy putting it back together again. So, you know, one thing we have to do is, you know, and that word integrity is perfect. It's absolutely the right word. The integrity of the project has to be very, very high. And you never know, we might just get there.
Grace.
So thank you. I like you now. Okay,
not that much.
So I agree with everything they just said. You know, all of that, and I believe, you know, it is time that IOSCO, you know, our regulators, you know, should look at the trading of these voluntary carbon markets. I personally do not agree that they should be traded, so to speak. I think once they're developed, they should be taken by somebody immediately and retired. There shouldn't be any trading because you add on to a lot of listing fees and clearing fees, etc. For my last 30 seconds, I really would like all the bankers here, Jonathan included, to really find a way to help finance these really expensive CCUS projects. Because the ones that I'm working on, just to get it in operation, it costs around $200 per ton of carbon dioxide. So how much do I need to sell in order to finance these projects? So I do need financing from the banks. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think what is important to acknowledge is everybody in this ecosystem has a role to play. So you can't just like some of the speakers are saying, you just buy the carbon credits and be happy with it, because that's not enough. You need to understand the project, the quality of the project, what is involved, has it been really challenged sufficiently, does it meet all the integrity requirements, so that you understand what this is. And I would urge everybody, the big corporates, individual citizens, learn about this and be part of it. And Asia Carbon Institute is in Asia, so you can actually talk to us, and we're very happy as a nonprofit to share more knowledge in this space. Thank you.
Tassos, you have the last word as the banker.
Well, I will positive note, right? I mean, I'm super encouraged about the conversations we're able to have today. When 6 years ago I, within the bank, had the first conversation, it was just myself saying what a great idea it was. That has changed. There's a lot of people that are engaged. We're all engaged both on nature and technology. We started understanding what is needed, these numbers, right? I mean, over time, people start understanding numbers. That's why I keep on saying carbonomics is really important to get it. You need to understand that carbon is a binding constraint, and therefore you need to solve for that closed loop system. And finance can help scale that. I'm just saying that there is practical limitations for every bank. Every different bank has different risk appetites and reputational appetite. You just need to be very careful how you navigate this space. We'll get there, but we will need some kind of regulatory and government, I would say, floor to allow us to play in that space.
Well, I think this has been a very honest discussion, and my panel is extremely knowledgeable and passionate. So I think this is an excellent panel for the HKMA and the BRI organization to end the Green Week. And I think we should go out for a drink at some time, because not now, unfortunately not right now, but this is a group of people that I think can really be helpful to help us clarify our thinking and actually get something done. So thank you, HKMA, and thank you to BRI as well.
Thank you so much.